So you don't get the respect as a young woman until you've accomplished all of this.
Until you accomplish something.
And for a lot of times, from the other perspective, it would appear that guys can be here and be given that respect, but you're not afforded that. Guys don't have to prove that piece of things.
Yeah, they just assume they'll reach it.
On a journey, mile markers show your progress toward a destination.
New places to see, new people to meet.
And yet, adulting? It's exciting, and it's hard.
New experiences.
New fears to conquer.
New questions that need answers.
None of us get to the destination on our own. When that destination feels 1,000 miles away, you're not on that road alone.
Maybe you guys can say this with me, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out
what it means to me.
And that's what we're gonna do. Hey everybody, I'm Mike Westendorf. Glad to have you guys with us. I wanna catch you up to speed on a conversation that we had as part of our focus group, as we've been putting this content together that we hope will be an encouragement to you and maybe challenge some of the perspectives that we have. Push us to looking deeper into what God's Word has to say about some of the things that we see and experience in life. And we got onto a really interesting conversation. We had about 4 guys, and we had, I think, about eight ladies with us as we were talking about different topics when it comes to ministry and the different generations and things like that. And one of the things that came up was this idea of respect. And I asked the question, what does respect mean for guys? When guys hear the idea of what does it mean to be respected as a man, and then we asked all the ladies, what does it mean to be respected as a woman in today's day and age? And this is admittedly, we can go down a lot of different paths and trails, but there were some interesting perspectives that I heard that I'm not privy to, because I'm not a woman, and I'm not, again, I didn't grow up having to be a woman in power situations or in certain social situations and things of that nature. So what I heard from both our younger and some of the older generation that was there as part of this group was very interesting to me. And so what we wanted to do, what I would like to see us do, in a very tense culture, that there's a lot of conversation, obviously, around how women are respected and how women are treated, how men are respected and treated. I mean, this is really running the whole gambit, and yet we can get into camps where we accuse each other of, and we look at all of that, and yet underneath this is this idea of respect for really humanity. But I would like to see and just talk a little bit about what does it mean to be respected as a woman, and what are the challenges that exist for women today. And I'm asking all of us to just have some patience and some grace to listen. We don't have all the answers and we don't have all the perspectives here, but to talk and just listen. I heard some powerful things, and one of the ones that I heard was a comparison in we'll just say an influencing position, or think about it in your stereotypical boardroom. A guy is standing and a woman is standing, and a guy speaks and has the idea, and a woman speaks and has the idea, and yet most of the time the man is going to be the one who's listened to. That was what really caught my attention in our conversations. So would you guys just share a little bit about what do you think it means to actually be respected as a woman today? And then we'll talk a little bit more about the challenges and the circumstances. But define respect as a woman today.
Well, I'll go ahead. I think, like you said earlier, when we talk about respect, it can mean so many different things. It can go so many different directions. You're talking about having a voice, being taken seriously, respecting someone else's body. The list goes on and on. Mm-hmm. And for me, I think the biggest thing when it comes to respect is that everybody comes to the table with unique gifts and talents, right? Man or woman. And it shouldn't matter, I guess, which gender that particular idea comes from. If it's a good idea, it should be a good idea. It shouldn't take, a woman saying it and then maybe the man saying it again for it to be taken seriously. And so when I see respect, that is, for me, the biggest thing that kind of drives my definition of what it should look like. We should all be taken at face value.
And you work in a professional
Correct.
environment, so you have a chance to see some of this too. Now you're a young lady in college. You're going to be wrapping up over the course of the next year or so. How do you define respect as a young woman today?
So one of the biggest things is kind of going off of what Jill said, but appreciating the talents and the abilities that you bring forward without having to prove yourself. A lot of times, like, people feel like they have to prove themselves a lot, specifically women, just because they're women. That's a big thing that I see.
I'm writing this down because I wanted to write it before I forgot it. But to be given the benefit of the doubt. You've heard that phrase before. So that would be a way in which you would experience respect, being also given the same benefit of the doubt and the benefit of people hearing you out.
Yeah, hearing us before just making assumptions.
Okay. Give us some context of the world that you experience in terms of times when you've been respected and you've walked away feeling listened to, and contrast to maybe some of the times when that doesn't happen.
So it's an interesting situation that I'm in right now. Since I'm a shift supervisor at Starbucks, whenever I'm in a position of power role, people seem to respect me more versus me if I'm just being myself, like on an everyday basis.
So if you have a title?
If I have a title, then okay, yeah. People think I'm older, people respect me more, people listen to me more, all of that kind of stuff. But if I was walking down the street or not working in that situation, then it's like, oh, she's just another girl.
Okay, so that it's interesting. So that title, the title brings some respect.
Yeah.
But if you take that title away,
then it's just me.
What does it feel like when it's just you?
When it's just me, I try to be myself all the time. That's what one of my main goals is that I'm not hiding anything from anybody. But it can definitely be frustrating when people don't view me or my ideas or anything I say with the same level, just because I might not have the right experience or something like that, which I understand a little bit with that. But at the same time, I bring these certain things to the table. Why shouldn't it be the same as what somebody else brings to the table?
It's interesting to hear you say it. Basically, title is a modifier to give people context to the potential strengths that you have. But if that title isn't there, that modifier isn't there, therefore people don't know how to give you the benefit of the doubt, so they don't.
There's also nothing to give for the benefit of the doubt, I feel, for girls. Because girls, it's like, oh, but then it's boys will be boys. That's the phrase that you hear, which people are like, oh, there's nothing to change about that. Boys will be boys. But it's like, okay, you're a young adult woman. Be one. That's what we're expected to be.
Explain to me that. Help me understand that.
The young adult woman? That whole part?
Yeah, that part. I mean, this is something that all us guys need to hear. I mean, I heard the boys will be boys. That's not exactly how we feel, but that's something that you do hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, to go with that a little bit more. Help me understand.
So being a young adult woman, I feel the pressure to make my life look like it's good, make sure I'm working on myself, make sure I'm staying a certain weight, preparing myself for a career, but then also maybe have a family, like all these different things that I have to prepare for.
So that bar is really,
yeah,
really
it's just
high.
really up high. And I feel like the respect part comes from being like, okay, that you're not this top person right now. And people should respect that and respect that I'm learning things or something like anything like
so
that.
So you don't get the respect as a young woman until you've accomplished all of this.
Until you accomplish something.
And for a lot of times, from the other perspective, it would appear that guys can be here and be given that respect, but you're not afforded that. Guys don't have to prove that piece of things.
Yeah, they just assume they'll reach it.
Okay, they assume that. What do you, and you're hearing her talk about, what are you seeing or feeling?
You know, being a little bit later in life, that is true, even though I've achieved a lot of those things, maybe in a different order than, you know, what those steps that kind of society lays out for you, you know, all your life goals that you hit school, you get married, you know, have kids, and have a power career all at the same time. That's, you know, then you've made it apparently. But, you know, just being at that level, we're a little bit further along, it's still never good enough. You're still expected to have that perfect image, you know, have a clean house, you know, work full time, take good care of your husband, make sure he's eating good. You know, you have other responsibilities added on to that. So people, and I don't know if it's really necessarily that people are truly judging us or we're just putting that weight on ourselves, like it's a perceived expectation. And I think sometimes, that's what gets us in trouble. I think we think other people think we should do things in that certain order, have things run a certain way. And we put way more pressure on ourselves. But in reality, when we start talking to our friends, they're like, you know, my life's a mess too. You know, you're doing pretty good. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, it comes to a point that was made in our conversation, you know, off camera with the other group. Why is it that it seems like women tend to go after each other hard? You know, that there is a rub there, and there's a lot of stereotypical crappy responses that people will make that are in response to this. But I don't know, Jill, you may have been you who had said something about the idea that, you know, if you could measure respect in a percentage, you know, that the respect would be assumed to the men 80% of the time, and that it leaves women like fighting for whatever is left. I think I got captured that. That's what I heard, but I may have misinterpreted it. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that perception does that play into the perception of what you're feeling too?
I think the assumption was in our small group that the women would kind of band together. At least that was from the man's perspective. But when the women started speaking up, we're like, no, we're fighting each other. There's, you know, because instantly that man will get the voice. They'll be listened to first, even though we're saying maybe the exact same thing. Maybe we're even saying it better. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there. But maybe we are, but they'll get that respect. Like you said, they'll maybe get 70% of the attention. And so the other women in there, they do tend to get very competitive with each other. They'll tear each other down. They might even seem to be banding together, but it's really to be stronger to tear somebody else down. And so that is really hard to deal with, you know, especially as a Christian woman. So, you know, what do you do with that? You know, you're supposed to treat everybody as God's children. Tearing each other down, really not the way we're supposed to be acting, right? So that's a big challenge for us to go down that path in a Christian way.
And part of why I wanted to bring this up was just that idea that again, if there's only 20 or 30% of the respect left of the people who are there for women, if that's what is actually happening, or if that's at least a perception because of our experiences, then it does make for an incredibly competitive environment in which you're just trying to grab any attention, any notoriety, any ability to build, and to have the ability to do other things that you love to do. When you're not respected, or if all that respect just arbitrarily goes in one direction, particularly if it's debatable about where that came from. I mean, you had a story we were talking off camera a little bit about that is a reality that you've seen recently. You're talking about a friend of yours.
Yeah, one of my friends, basically, she was doing some chemistry research, and it was her, and then there was a guy partner, and they were working together, and they went to present this research, and she did a lot of the work and was really like involved with it, and knew like most of the answers to what people were asking. But she said almost every single person immediately went to the guy research partner instead of her, and they just kind of treated her like, oh, the pretty girl who's helped with the project.
Oh, isn't nice?
Yeah.
There's women in STEM.
There's women
Awesome.
in STEM.
Yeah. But that's a story that really happens, and again, we're not trying to to push down on guys. We're just asking that question of what does it mean to be respected as a man, and what does it mean to be respected as a woman? Because this then is going to go toward sexuality. This is going to go toward money and earning potential. This is going to go toward roles that are happening at home and things of that nature. And we'll have Mike Novotny, Pastor Mike, in to talk a little bit about this too, from the really the Christian perspective. And we'll talk a little bit about Christian homes and in the Christian church. But I wanted to highlight this just because this was a perspective that it made me step back and think, because it bothers me the objectification of women, how a woman's body is used. You know, you look at the eating disorders that are not only happening to women, but the percentage is growing for men to be in eating disorder situations. Between that and again the misuse of just consuming people's imagery, the bodies. You know, pornography obviously is a tremendous problem for young men and for men of all ages, but it's a growing problem within the ranks of women as well. The percentage continues to change, and these are all things that don't garner respect.
Yeah,
it's a way that we abuse one another, and this picture of respect and the subtleties of that are really important to bring out. So, how does a woman today feel she needs to respond in order to be respected?
Well, I can tell you what I have done in my professional career, and I've taken, a little bit different approach than the worldly approach, being a Christian. But sometimes, and thankfully, I work with actually some pretty amazing men that when they are given credit for something that I have done, they'd have actually spoken up and say, it was actually her idea. She actually did all the work. I'm just, helping present it or whatnot. So I'm very blessed that I do have that in my life. But in the situations where I have felt disrespected or whatnot, I've kind of taken an approach like, first I pause. I make sure that I'm taking it in the proper context, because sometimes I think our emotions can, and say, wait, you just said what? And then it turns into this whole storyline in your head, and it's not even the right story. And if you're unclear of that story or what's going on, get clarification first before responding. That pause has saved me so many times from saying things that I shouldn't say in meetings, or, attacking other people. And tearing them down. So I first pause, and then the second thing is to just, the source of where that's coming from. They're a child of God too. Mm-hmm. They might not, be a Christian or living out their faith, but they're still a child of God. And people are stories. Everyone has a story. What's going on behind there. They could be just saying something because they're having a bad day. So I kind of weigh all of those things first. And I get through that list. And then if I get there and it's still something that I need to say something, I need to stand up for myself, then I will. But I try to evaluate that situation before diving in and then either acting in a non-Christian way or saying something that I will completely regret later. Mm-hmm. So that's how I've approached it. So I don't know if you have any stories.
For me, since I haven't had that much like professional experience, for when if I'm being disrespected or something like that, I've also paused just so I don't overreact and like just say something that I don't mean to say. It's just the first thing into my head. That pause, yeah, definitely has helped so that I can think things through before I just blurb it out. And I like to take the approach of like letting the person know how it made me feel versus just blaming them or like saying you did this kind of thing.
Because guys will not respond well to that.
Yeah.
Will raise the defense very, very fast.
So what I found is like saying like, well, I felt this way when this happened, kind of thing, to kind of like connect, because everybody can connect on emotions. So kind of taking that step back, just so it kind of gives them like any person who disrespects you the chance to like think about it first, instead of just saying you did this. So that's definitely one big thing that I've found with situations where I'm not respected. Yeah.
There's a Bible passage that we want to share with you. And by the way, so this is a lot of this, ladies, care to share? What does it mean to be respected as a woman today? What does it mean to be respected by other women? What does it mean to be respected by men just in general, or in a working relationship, or even at home? Husbands and wives, what does it mean to be respected? Guys, I think it's really important to hear some of this without being defensive. Take words and actions in the kindest possible way. We are going to talk with Adam and Pastor Mike about this too, because I think it's really important for women to hear, because there's some stereotypes and there's some things that are out there that if you understood some of the insecurities that we aren't going to tell you about, but that if we're honest in the dark places, in the quiet places at night, we would be mortified to tell you how we feel and our need to be patted on the back and congratulated. It's boys will be boys in some respect. Yeah, even as a man, I'm the 6-year-old kid, and I can get there really fast. So we are going to talk, ladies. We're going to make sure that guys have an opportunity, so you can hear from them too. What does it mean to be respected as a man, and the importance of words, things of that nature. But as I'm hearing you talk about the pause, there's a Bible passage that I'd like to leave all of us with, and it comes from 1 Peter. Peter is at the end of his life. It's at the end of his ministry, and he's after a life lived on a lot of assumptions, thinking it's going to go one way, and Jesus himself having to constantly correct him. I can identify with this, Peter's character. I think a lot of us can. But he's going to come to the end of this, and he does talk about this idea of submitting. And I love that Pastor Mike talks about submit. The word submit means to you first somebody. And by that pause, you actually are living out something that I think is beautiful, and it's in 1 Peter chapter 5. He writes, and this is again God writing to you and me through the hand of Peter. He says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." And that pause is awesome. Guys, we can definitely learn, because we can be just as emotional as you can. And what do you mean? And we get very defensive. But that pause is basically a spot where we say, humble. Remember who I am in Christ, daughter of the King of Kings. There's no guy, there's no boardroom, there's no work environment, there's no family that can take that away from me. Daughter, son, humble yourselves under God's mighty hand. He's the one with the power. That he will make it all work out, and he will lift you up, in
Due time.
due time. Darn it! Like, how about right now time? Well, I'm right there in the meeting so that everybody can see how glorious I am. Or this was my idea. And God says, humble yourself in due time. And so what you've heard is, again, I love what you guys have shared. And my prayer is that for us as guys in particular, especially if we have an opportunity in a position of influence or power, a title that tells, here's our strengths, that we would recognize that respect idea is really, it's a commodity that people are dying for. And how can we be able to bring respect evenly to both men and women? We won't talk about it now. You're going to hear us talk about strengths. Strengths Finders, Gallup Strengths Finders, 8 strengths in the soul. I no longer think about it from a gender standpoint. It's 8 strengths in the soul. God has uniquely gifted all of us with 8 key strengths, really out of 34, that really make up our operating system. And so you mentioned, your husband's car salesman, don't talk to me because I hate you guys. I'm not talking to you. You talk to my wife. She's the one who knows how to do this. I have no desire to. All it is a confession of a strength. It's a strength that I don't have. We were talking Old Testament, Deborah. And here's a woman leader. And where are the guys? And what did you say? The guy says,
I need help. Can you come with me? And she's like, sure, I'll come with you and help. And together they go and do stuff.
Yeah.
And she builds him up. He builds her up. They build each other up.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how you do it. RESPECT. Would you find out what it means to a man or to a woman in your life that you care about? Would you find out what RESPECT means to the people in your workplace who are men and women? And maybe be willing to be vulnerable enough to share what it looks like and feels like to be disrespected, both sides, so that in this passage, with the context of 1 Peter 5, verse 6, that we would humble ourselves, pause, under God's mighty hand, trust who I am in Him, that He might lift you up in due time. He'll then go on to say, cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. And that's where I'd like to leave us, is that your God respects you because He's the one who made you. So I think we'll kind of wrap on this one, but this is, if you've got a place where you'd like us to take this conversation in the future, let us know. But until then, we'll keep this RESPECT conversation going. We hope that you guys will too.